Thank you, Doctor, for your kind introduction. So good morning to all of you. Here is good afternoon. So first and foremost, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Elkai, who invited me to deliver a guest lecture at your esteemed university. So I feel honored and privileged to be here with you today to share some ideas on sustainable development. So let's share the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So dear students, after listening to this lecture, you should be able to understand and define the basic concepts of sustainable development. You should be able to differentiate between Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. You should be able to understand the purpose of sustainable development. Then you will be able to discuss the Sustainable Development Goals as well as indicators. Then eventually or finally, you can conceptualize sustainable development with an Asian perspective. Let me talk about the concept of sustainability. So where does the term come from? The original term for sustainability is Nachaya Tiskai, is German word. I can't pronounce correctly. So, which means sustain yield. So it first appeared in a handbook of forestry that was published in 1713. So this was meant that never harvest more than the forest can regenerate. And later on, the term was translated in English in the mid-19th century. In 1987, the Brundtland Report establishes decades of work on sustainable development. So we'll talk about Brundtland Commission or Brundtland Report. So Brundtland Commission, formerly known as the World Commission on Environment and Development. The main purpose or the main task of the Brundtland Commission was to unite countries to pursue sustainable development together. That means to engage countries, to unite all countries to engage in sustainable development. The chairperson of the commission was Go Halim Brundtland, was appointed by United Nations Secretary General Xavier in December 1983. At the time, the UN General Assembly realized that and natural resources. So to assemble countries or to unite all countries to work and to engage in sustainable development, the UN decided to establish the Brundtland Commission. So Gro Harlem Brundtland was the former Prime Minister of Norway and was chosen due to her strong background in the sciences and public health. The Brundtland Commission officially dissolved in December 1987 after releasing Our Common Future. It is also known as the Brundtland Report. In October 1987, a document which coined, which invented and defined the meaning of the term sustainable development. So even our common future won the University of Louisville award in 1991. Then the organization Center for Our Common Future was started in April 1988 to take the place of the commission. So what is sustainable development was given by Brundtland Commission in 1987. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So simply, we can say that we should fulfill our needs without destroying the ability of the future generation to fulfill their needs. Then, what is sustainability? Sustainability means ability to sustain. In order to acquire sustainability, we need to encapsulate 3 dimensions of sustainability. So that means sustainability is a holistic approach that considers ecological, social, and economic dimensions, recognizing that all must be considered together to find lasting prosperity. That's why it is called holistic approach, which encapsulates environmental, social, and economic dimensions. Let me show you some examples. To make it more clear, can you conceptualize or visualize this picture? Do you think that it is a sustainable profession? Does it cover 3 dimensions of sustainability? So, by the way, I think, do you know this vehicle? If you visit South Asia, you will find it available. It is called rickshaw, and there is a rickshaw puller who paddle it. So what do you think? Is it sustainable? Looking at the definition of sustainability, because sustainability encapsulates 3 dimensions of ecological, social, and economic. So if you look at this profession, do you think, is it sustainable? Not really. Let me tell you why not. If you look at this profession, it is environmentally sustainable because it does not produce CO2 emission. Okay, so 1 dimension is there. But absence of economic as well as social dimension, because it does not guarantee job security. That means there is no job security. If he is in good health, then he can continue, otherwise not. So his income is not stable. He does not have decent work environment. So that means there is a lack of social dimension, and it is also inhumanly hard piece of work. Let me show you another example. Can you visualize this picture? Picture of LRT. It is called light rail transit, okay? I think you are familiar with LRT. This picture is taken from Malaysia, where I live. So do you think, is it sustainable transportation? Not really. Because number 1, it contributes to national economy. So economic dimension is there. It ensures job security. Okay, it ensure another dimension, the social dimension. Okay, but it generates carbon emission, so it is not sustainable. As I mentioned earlier, that sustainability refers to a holistic approach which encapsulates, which covers three dimensions of sustainability: economic, social, and ecological. But this picture covers only two dimensions. One is absent. Let me show third example. Can you conceptualize third picture? Farmer is applying using fertilizer which is not environmentally friendly. So this is an example of unsustainable activities. Let's talk about the three pillars of sustainability. As we mentioned earlier, that we have three dimensions of sustainability. One is social, second one is economic, third one is environmental or ecological dimension of sustainability. It is also known as three pillars of sustainability. Let me give you another example. Let's say you are involved with organic farming. So if you have only two dimensions, that means social and environmental dimension, but you do not have economic dimension. Because if you are involved with organic farming, it is considered less profitable. So economic dimension is absent. It is considered expensive. So it covers only two dimensions. One is environment plus social. That's why it is called bearable. It is bearable, but not sustainable. Look at the second example, okay? Let's say you are involved with bumper crop production using chemical or fertilizer, okay? So if you involved with such kind of crop production, you will fulfill two dimensions. One is social, another one is economic, because you can make money, you can maximize your profit, and also you can ensure job security. But what will happen to the environment? So environmental dimension does not meet here. So that means it is called equitable, social plus economic. It is not sustainable. Then let's look at the third example of, I think all of you are familiar with Uber or Grab. So if you use Grab or Uber rather than personal car, that means you can reduce using personal cars. That will reduce the CO2 emission. But look at the drivers of Uber. Their job is not secured. So they have only two dimensions, environment plus economic. Social dimension is not there. So it is called viable. But in order to have sustainable development, we should consider three pillars or three dimensions of sustainability. That means sustainable, equal, economic plus social plus environmental. That refers to sustainable. Let's talk about very briefly Millennium Development Goals as well as Sustainable Development Goals. I think you are familiar with 8 Millennium Development Goals, so I'm not going to explain here. So Millennium Development Goals were started in 2000 and ended by 2015. So after that, a unified framework was introduced which encapsulates economic, society, as well as environment. So which is known as new dimensions for sustainable development. The new time span from 2015 to 2030. But the fundamental question arises here, why sustainable development goals were introduced after Millennium Development Goal? This is because after Millennium Development Goals, gender inequality persists. And there were big gaps exist between the poorest and richest households. That means inequality was widened. Then there was huge gap between rural and urban areas. Then climate change, we are facing the new global issues, which is climate change and environmental degradation, undermine any progress achieved. Poor people suffer the most. Then conflict remains the biggest threat to human development, and millions of people still live in poverty and hunger without access to basic services after Millennium Development Goals. That's why we, the world leaders, motivate to develop sustainable development goals, the new dimension, okay? So the Millennium Development Goals motivate us to work on it collectively. As we can see, the success of Millennium Development Agenda proof that global action can work. So it motivates us to work on it collectively, together. It is arguing that global action is the only path to ensure that the new development agenda leaves no one behind. Okay, so this is the main theme of sustainable development. No one will be left behind. Okay, so the world could build on the successes and to embrace new ambitions for the future we want. So the new agenda should be truly universal and transformative. As humanity, we seek a sustainable future. Okay, then the origin of the UN 2030 agenda. 2012 UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro, okay, Rio Plus, it is also known as Rio Plus 20. Then appeal made to formulate common goals and include this in the post 2015 development agenda. And the Millennium Development Goals did not consider environmental issues, for example, emissions of greenhouse gases, access to clean drinking water, management of water resources. So we come up with some new, world leaders come up with some new focus on the concept of sustainable development, need to consider the relationship between nature and society, then social, environmental, and economic dimension. Then Sustainable Development Goals contains 17 goals, okay? It has 169 targets, then 232 indicators, and the time span is 2015 to 2030. Then what is new and different about 17 Sustainable Development Goals? As I mentioned, that first and foremost, the first and the most important, these goals apply to everyone, every sector, cities, businesses, schools, organizations, all are challenged to act. So this is called universality. Okay. Then second, it is recognized that the goals are interconnected, interdependent. In a system, we can't aim to achieve just one goal. We must achieve them all because it is interconnected. All goals are interconnected. That's why it is called integration. And finally, it is widely recognized that achieving these goals involves making very big fundamental changes in how we live on Earth. That is referred to the environmental issue. This is called transformation. Okay. Then sustainable goals. Okay, for the goals to be reached, everyone needs to do their part. Governments, private sectors, civil society, people like you. 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, we can divide into 5 P's. That means the main goals focus on the 5 P's. People, the well-being of all people. Then it talks about planet, protection of the Earth's ecosystem. Then prosperity, continued economic and technological growth. Then it talks about peace, securing peace. Then partnership, improving international cooperation. So focus on the 5 P's. So these 5 aspects are interdependent, interconnected. Therefore, the Sustainable Development Goals demand integrated thinking as well as integrated approaches to achieving the goals. The focus on people, which is unfinished business of the Millennium Development Goals. That means Sustainable Development Goals 1 to 5. It was included in the Millennium Development Goals, but it was unfinished business. Okay. So, and poverty in all its form everywhere. Then second goal, end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Then third goal is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Then ensure inclusive and equitable equality, education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Then goal number 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Then the focus on the planet and the prosperity, these new areas, Sustainable Development Goals from 6 to 11. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Then ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Then goal 8, to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. The 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Then 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. This is the new areas, Sustainable Development Goals from 6 to 11. Then the planet and prosperity goal, green agenda, okay, so from Sustainable Development 12 to 15.
Dear colleague,
Yes?
Dr. Mahmoud, we have to now give a few minutes break because we are out of time due to Zoom's time limitation. Now we are recording the seminar, and I have created new meeting. You, me, and our participants can enter with the same ID and password to the new meeting so that we can have more time, 30 minutes for going on, because you are telling us quite important things, and this information is new for much of the participants. That's why